My life in Manchester felt pretty ordinary, pretty stable, maybe a bit predictable, and that was exactly how I liked it, especially with big changes on the horizon. I'm Ewan Fletcher, 34 years old, worked a decent job, had my routine, saw my mates down the pub, the usual really. But things were about to get extraordinary in the best way possible, or so I thought. Sarah, my then girlfriend, was pregnant, due any day. We'd been together a couple of years, nothing too dramatic, just building a life together. I was buzzing, honestly, imagining holding our little one, teaching them how to kick a football, all that stuff. My biggest value was providing for this kid, giving them a solid start, a proper family unit. That was everything to me, the future I saw stretching out ahead, full of nappies and sleepless nights and unconditional love. Manchester might be a big city, but my world was about to shrink down to this tiny new person and making sure they were happy and safe. But then the ground fell away. It started subtly, just a nagging feeling that Sarah was distracted, always on her phone, secretive. One night, just a few weeks before the baby was due, 8 months pregnant she was, I saw her phone lying there. I know I shouldn't have looked, but the feeling was eating away at me. What I found was a punch to the gut. Messages with a bloke I'd never heard of, calling her pet names, talking about meeting up. Scrolling further back, it got worse. He clearly didn't know I existed. She'd completely hidden me from him, her best friend she called him, someone she texted constantly, hearting his photos, sharing bits of her life, a life that apparently didn't include me or the baby she was carrying. It wasn't just him. There were others, not physically cheating as far as I could tell from the messages, but just inappropriate. Flirting, seeking attention, even sending gifts like a plushie and flowers to another woman, something she'd never done for me. It was a constant stream of needing external validation, completely ignoring the life we were supposed to be building. Seeing it all laid bare, the sheer volume of it, the lies by omission, the disrespect. It didn't just hurt, it shattered the image I had of our future, of her, of us. My initial reaction was pure shock, followed swiftly by a cold, heavy anger. How could she, while carrying our child, while I was dreaming about being a dad? The hurt was physical, a tight knot in my chest. The decision to seek some form of redress, some way to make her understand the magnitude of her actions, wasn't immediate, but the seed was planted right there, looking at those messages. The baby arrived, a little boy, Leo, all tiny fingers and toes, a complete miracle. For a while, the sheer exhaustion and wonder of having a newborn overshadowed everything. I really did, to make things work. I thought maybe with Leo here, things would shift, she'd focus on the family. I tried talking to her about what I'd seen, about needing honesty, about building trust back. It was like talking to a brick wall. She'd brush it off, say it was nothing. I was imagining things, being insecure. My first attempts at putting our family first, demanding honesty, asking for her to be present, they just bounced off her. She seemed even more detached after Leo was born, more interested in her phone, in whatever validation she was getting from whoever online or off. I tried to provide to make sure Leo had everything. I cooked proper meals, simple stuff, but home-cooked and nutritious. She'd barely touch it, preferring takeaways, sometimes twice a day. Then she'd complain to her mum or friends that I wasn't providing, that I barely cooked, twisting the narrative completely. It wasn't just frustrating, it was maddening. It was like living with a stranger who actively undermined me. The complications piled up. She started leaving Leo with me more and more, making excuses, disappearing for hours. The financial strain became immense. I was buying everything, nappies, formula, clothes, everything Leo needed on top of all the household bills. She contributed next to nothing. When I'd ask her about money for Leo, just the basics, she'd get defensive, say she had her own expenses, that I should be providing more. It escalated when her friend, someone she'd been messaging with about our relationship problems, started getting involved. This friend, apparently fed a completely one-sided story by Sarah, actually threatened me. He said he was going to call social services, child protective services, to get Leo taken away, claiming I was an unfit parent. My blood ran cold. That was the rising stake, the nightmare scenario. I immediately sent him screenshots of Sarah's messages to me where she admitted to things, where she showed her true colors. He backed down slightly, admitting Sarah had shown him texts, but not those texts, saying he'd consider taking my side, whatever that meant. We even had a ridiculous conversation where he suggested I agree to let Sarah have full custody in exchange for no child support, something I knew, thanks to talking to a solicitor friend, wasn't even legally possible. Child support is the child's money, not mine. You can't sign it away. It showed how little they understood or cared about Leo's actual needs. Everything seemed to be closing in. The financial stress, the constant emotional toll of dealing with Sarah's indifference and dishonesty, and now the threat of losing Leo. There was a dark moment, standing in Leo's nursery late at night, rocking him, completely exhausted, staring at the wall. I felt utterly defeated, alone. Was all this fighting, all this stress, even worth it? Maybe I should just give up, let her walk away completely. But then I looked down at Leo's perfect little face, trusting and peaceful in my arms, and I knew I couldn't. This wasn't about me anymore, or even just about Sarah. This was about him. She wasn't just hurting me, she was neglecting her son. That was the lowest point, the moment I realized trying to reason with her, appeal to her conscience, was useless. The only path left was one she couldn't ignore. That dark moment, cradling Leo and feeling the weight of it all, crystallized my resolve. Negotiation was pointless. Appealing to her sense of responsibility was a dead end. The only thing left was to involve something she couldn't argue with, something with actual power to enforce accountability. The final plan wasn't about grand gestures or public humiliation. It was quiet, legal, and utterly non-negotiable. It was about child support. It wasn't revenge in the sense of making her suffer for the cheating or the lies, not directly. It was revenge for the neglect, for the financial abandonment, for forcing me to carry this entire burden alone while she chased whatever fleeting attention she craved. It was about forcing her to face the consequences of bringing a child into the world, and then acting like he didn't exist unless it was convenient. The process wasn't quick. Gathering the documents, getting Leo's birth certificate, which took ages, filling out the forms. It was months of tedious work while still juggling full-time care for a baby and trying to make ends meet. It took about 3 months in total to finally get everything filed. Then came the climactic confrontation, not with shouting or drama, but through the post, serving the papers. I remember the day they went out, a quiet, grim satisfaction settling over me. It wasn't a victory dance, it was the quiet click of a trap closing. The immediate aftermath wasn't explosive, but it was telling. Sarah received the papers and suddenly started sending small amounts of money, nowhere near what she should have been contributing, just tiny payments. I told her to stop. The formal process was underway, she needed to deal with that. Her mum even got involved, messaging me through a translation app. She didn't speak English, I don't speak Chinese, saying Sarah didn't owe me anything because she didn't have access to Leo, a situation entirely of her own making by refusing to engage or contribute. It was the denial, the refusal to accept reality, that was infuriating but also confirmed I'd done the right thing. Sarah had a month to respond to the child support order, to try and negotiate the amount through the proper channels. She didn't. She just kept sending those small amounts for another 2 months, ignoring the legal process entirely. Now the order is processed. She owes back pay for months of neglect, an amount far, far greater than the pittance she was sending. The consequences she tried so hard to avoid, to pretend didn't apply to her, are now legally binding. My new normal is still being the primary caregiver for Leo, and that's fine, that's what I wanted more than anything. But the financial pressure is eased significantly, and more importantly, there's an official recognition of her responsibility. Looking back, was it worth the stress, the fighting, the dark moments? Yes, not for some petty satisfaction, but because Leo deserves to be supported by both his parents, legally and financially. It wasn't the dramatic takedown you see in films, but forcing accountability when someone utterly refuses to provide for their child feels like a profound kind of justice. Thanks, Sarah, for making me go through all that, for abandoning your son. Because of it, I did the hardest thing, the right thing, and now you have to face the consequences you desperately tried to outrun. My reflection is simple. Sometimes, the most effective revenge isn't about causing pain, but about enforcing justice, quiet and absolute. And now, I can just focus on being the dad Leo deserves.